already have a lot of respect for you guys because you're the brave group. Because this is totally a talk about sex. So if you're sitting here and you're like, wait a second, I'm in the wrong room. Like I gotta get out of here. But no, I actually give you major props because you're gonna talk about sex for half of an hour. But I heard that the topic that you guys have been diving into is simple, like simplicity. And I'm going to attempt to show how the pure lifestyle, the way that God describes it, really is a simple way of life. The church overcomplicates it, the world overcomplicates it, but God's design really can be simple. Have you guys ever heard the phrase, the KISS method? No? Okay. KISS means keep it simple, stupid. You guys have heard of this. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Personally, I think it's a horrible acronym because if you know anything about kissing, it's not simple. Like, kissing is super complicated and kind of awkward. Like, I remember my husband and I's first kiss, and it was a big deal. Like, we waited 2 weeks before our wedding to kiss. And it was both of our first kiss, actually, because it was like both of our first serious relationship. And we decided to wait 2 weeks before the wedding, because we're like, man, we want to make it all the way to our wedding day, living pure lives, and we're not going to like ruin it with all this hot and heavy kissing stuff. So we're going to wait 2 weeks. We're going to wait 2 weeks. And so we did, and our first kiss was weird. Like, for anyone in the room that's had a first kiss, like, it's kind of wet and slimy feeling at first. Like, you're like, this is a weird texture. But it only took one kiss, I'm not even joking, one awkward kiss for things to get, like, woo, passionate, okay? Like, the second kiss, the third kiss, and it's starting to get hot and heavy. Okay, wait, whoa, we gotta cut ourselves off. Like, we're not ruining this for ourselves 2 weeks before the wedding. So kissing is anything but simple. It's a big deal. So it kind of irritates me, or it makes me sad, I guess would be the right word, when I hear people say, just relax, like, it's just kissing, or like, it's just sex, what's the big deal? Okay, I don't know anyone who actually sounds like that. But I've heard that a lot. What's the big deal? It's just sex. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? Like, I don't know if they're talking about the same sex that I'm talking about, or like if they've experienced something different. It's a huge deal, guys. Like, don't believe that it's just blasé. Mandy Moore, do you guys know her? She's a Hollywood famous actress, This Is Us movie star. She was just interviewed 2 months ago in a magazine, and she was asked about her first time. And you know what she said? It wasn't that great. She's like, I don't understand what all the fuss was about. And that made me so sad, guys. Because sex is amazing. It really is. It's special. And you guys are sitting there like, hello, some of us are still in middle school? Like, you shouldn't be telling us how amazing sex is. It's going to make us want to have sex. Yes and no. Yes, it's okay to want to have sex. Like, God actually created you with the desire. All right? So yes, that part's okay. But no, it is not okay to idolize it. It is not okay to be obsessed with it. But you know what else isn't okay? It's not okay to be like afraid and like avoid it. And treat it like it's this like topic that we can't talk about. And that's what the church has done for way too long. We've been scared of it. Instead of idolizing it, we've avoided it. And you know what we need to do? We need to understand the value so we protect it, guys. My friends and I started a ministry called the Cross My Heart Ministries back in high school. Laura Coulier, who's in this room, so I didn't actually need a picture of her. Hello. Hey, Laura! You guys probably know her. She was part of founding the ministry. Mandy Maurer back there, who's taking photos today, she was part of founding the ministry. A couple faces you guys might recognize from Res. And we started this ministry because, well, the year was 2010. I was graduating high school. Flash mobs were a huge deal. Like, people were doing all these flash mob engagements and stuff. Katy Perry's California Girls was playing nonstop on the radio, right? And I was freaking out a little bit Okay, maybe a lot, about what college I was going to go to. So this is the scene that's set. And I'm looking around at all my friends, and then I'm looking around at my other classmates, and I see so many girls obsessed with guys. Obsessed with what they look like, obsessed with relationships, and they're getting in catty fights. There's a bunch of drama. They're brokenhearted. They're hooking up with guys on the weekends and then breaking up with them. And I just didn't get it, because from the sounds of it, you'd think I'm going to a public school. But I wasn't. These were Christian girls. These were the good girls that are going to church every Sunday, that are maybe at a youth conference like you guys are. And these are the decisions they're making that are just absolutely destroying them. And then I look at my friends, okay? I look at Mandy, I look at Laura, and I'm like, guys, we're having fun. Like, we're having too much fun to be distracted by all that drama and caring so much about what we look like or pining over all the hot guys. Like, we're just really loving and enjoying life. Like, what is the difference? What is it that these other girls don't seem to be getting? And so we started Across My Heart Ministries to share God's design for sexuality, God's design for holistic sex or holistic purity. See, when we follow God's ways, it affects every part of our lives. Emotional, spiritual, mental, and yes, our physical bodies. They're all connected. There's a character in the Bible that really got this. His name was Joseph, okay? If you guys have your Bibles with you, I'm going to have you guys turn to Genesis 39. Joseph understood that his physical self mattered deeply to the gospel. Our bodies are spiritual and physical. They matter deeply to the gospel. Now let me give you a little bit of background on Joseph. Some of you guys might be familiar with him, maybe some of you aren't. The character of Joseph was born in this family of brothers, all right? And God was doing amazing things through this family. And specifically, Joseph, when he was born, God gave him dreams, visions for his future and how he was going to use him and his life. Joseph shared these dreams with his brothers, and they got so jealous. They got so jealous to the point that they abused him and they sold him into slavery. Now, Joseph had an amazing hard work ethic, okay? And his hard work ethic was noticed. So even as a slave, he was able to work his way up, and he was working for the top official of the Pharaoh, like Pharaoh, king of Egypt, Pharaoh. So here we have Joseph. Though he's a slave, he's working in one of the most posh houses he could possibly be working in. And that's where our story that we're going to read today takes place. He's working in the home of Potiphar, Pharaoh's official, when Potiphar's wife approaches him to seduce him. And we see that Joseph flees from this sexual temptation. So we're going to read that story, and I'm going to talk a lot about Joseph. But you guys might also hear me talking about my husband, Joseph, so it might get a little bit confusing. Joseph happens to be one of my favorite Bible characters because of his outstanding life, but also probably because my husband shares his name. So don't get confused if I'm referencing them back and forth, although I do want to point out there is one verse that actually applies to both of them. It's Genesis 39, verse 6. It says, "Now Joseph was well-built and handsome." And I read that verse and I'm like, yes, he is. It's like, is that talking about Joseph in the Bible or Joseph, my husband? He doesn't like to be embarrassed, so I put a picture of him up here. That way you wouldn't look at him, you'd look at the picture. So yes, that's one of my favorite pictures of him. But Joseph is one of the only characters in the Bible, there's only a handful, that are described as being handsome. Think Joseph, there's Saul, David, Absalom. There's really only a few men who are described as being good looking, and you know what? Almost every single one of them gives in to sexual temptation. Joseph is one of the only good-looking guys that doesn't, all right? So he's impressive. Let's read his story together. He's in the home, like I said, of Potiphar, and his master's wife approaches him. Genesis 39, verse 6. Now Joseph was well-built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her. This is my man voice. "With me in charge, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am, so my master has withheld nothing from me except for you, because you're his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day, he went into the house to attend his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. She caught him by the cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. He ran. He fled that sexual temptation, guys. Now think about it. That would have been the opportune moment to sin. I mean, if he would have wanted and desired to sleep with Potiphar's wife, he could have gotten away with it. The scripture says there was no one in the house. She wanted him. She was like, "You are good looking." She was desiring him. He could have easily given into that temptation. And it could have used the excuse that no one will find out. How often do we use that excuse as a reason to fall into sexual temptation? Maybe you're on your computer late at night and you stumble across a website that you know you shouldn't be on, but no one's around to see. Or maybe you're with a guy or girl, your boyfriend, girlfriend, in the basement of their parents' house and no one's around. You can maybe push the limits a little bit. Or maybe you take a Snapchat. It's kind of a seductive picture of yourself. And you reason, well, it erases, it's Snapchat, so it's okay. Or it's online, it's not real life. We make all these excuses, thinking that no one will see or no one will find out. But you know who will find out? Is God. There's no creature hidden from his sight. All things are open. All of our actions, our thoughts, they're laid bare to his eyes. Joseph knew this. And Joseph didn't use the fact that no one was around as an excuse. No, instead, his motivation wasn't getting caught. His motivation was honoring God. So his reason not to sleep with Potiphar's wife was this. He says, "How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Because he realized when I sin, it's a sin against God. He cared about what God thought. You know, it's really easy to put God up in heaven and kind of think that he's like disconnected from our daily lives. There's actually a word for that. It's called deism, where we put God up in heaven and he's like all lofty up there, and then we like only pray to him when we really need him. Maybe the plane is crashing, and we're like, "God save me!" Or we just want something. And so then we want him to be involved. But that's not the way that our God works. Our God is deeply involved in our everyday encounters. Guys, he cares about the physical things of this world. I can tell you that because 2,000 years ago, there was a cosmic collide of the universe. When the God of heaven came down to take on human flesh, and the physical and the spiritual became one. He was fully God and fully man. He walked among us and experienced the things of this physical world. They matter deeply, deeply to him. Our sex, our finances, the daily choices that we make, they can all be used for the glory of God. There isn't this spiritual, physical divide that God doesn't care about. And you know, I'm kind of preaching to the choir because the statistics have actually shown that your generation is more in touch with spirituality than the generation before you. Did you know that Gen Z is actually realizing that we have souls and spirits? Now, mind you, it's not turning them to the one true God. There's a lot of Eastern mysticism and things that people are messing around with, but there's this deep understanding that we have like this soul, this spirit within us. Your generation is getting in touch with that and understanding the material world isn't disconnected. It's connected. Which is why when we use the phrase, I lost my virginity, it just seems really empty. Because when you just say, I lost my virginity, like how do you just lose it? Like I lose my cell phone. Guys, I was looking for my cell phone on my way here. Like my husband had to call me, we were 5 minutes late. It's like, oh no, where put my phone? You lose your glasses, you lose things. But you don't just lose your virginity like a material object. No, anyone here, I promise you, anyone here who has already lost their virginity, or maybe you've been abused in some way, you can say that physical part of yourself is deeply, deeply connected to your spirit. We are holistic beings. And you know who understands this? Satan. The enemy is prowling around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour us. You know what else Scripture says devours us? The adulterous woman. An adulterous woman consumes, devours a man, then wipes her mouth and says, what's wrong with that? Satan is using sex as a weapon of spiritual warfare to get us distracted and off course and off mission of the vision and the purpose that God has for our lives. Joseph had a vision and a purpose and a calling from God. And he could have been thrown off course sleeping with Potiphar's wife. But he stayed the course, guys. He saw the spiritual battle. Do you see it? There's a story from a speaker that I listened to. Her 8-year-old son saw it. Guys, she's at the grocery store with her son, and they're standing there in the aisle to check out, and he's looking at the magazines. And you know what that means. Little 8-year-old boy's looking at these magazines, and he sees this cover of this woman on the front of this magazine, and she's dressed seductively, and she's got this look on her face, like the open mouth, seductive look. Like, you guys all know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm so sexy. And he looks at this picture and he yells out to his mama. He goes, Mama, she's gonna eat me. That little boy, at 8 years old, could see in the eyes of the adulterous woman that she's consuming and devouring. Man, that is the attitude of adultery and sexual sin. It devours us. So how do you battle it, guys? How do you battle it? Do you battle in spiritual warfare with a list of rules? No. You battle spiritual warfare with the power of God. Now, I can tell you, we've been trying to navigate sexuality for a long time in the wrong way. The world, the church, we've been trying to navigate sexuality, and it's just been confusing, okay? Things are about to get complicated. I'm going to tell you 3 ways that we have tried to navigate sexuality that has not worked. The purity movement. The purity movement of the 1990s. This is one of the reasons why Across My Heart Ministry started. The purity movement says, you can't wear a shirt that is more than 2 finger widths from your collarbone. Your shorts have to reach below your fingertips. You can't watch this list of movies. You're not allowed to date. Rules upon rules upon rules upon rules. Now, I'm not saying rules are bad, always. But they've got to start with relationship. Because rules without relationship equal rebellion. And then you're just following the rules like a robot. Instead of having a heart, a relationship with God that says, I want to do the right thing. And that's what the purity movement missed. It missed the heart behind why, what's the point? Why are we following these rules? It missed the heart behind the rules, the relationship behind them. It also capitalized on fear. Like I said earlier, the church has often been afraid to talk about sex. And so we've just wanted to lock it away like a monster and be afraid of it and avoid it, instead of valuing it as a design from God that has a place in our conversations and discussions in the church. couple things the purity movement did wrong. When you have a list of rules, you often find yourself asking, how far is too far? You guys all know that question. I'm sure you've all asked it in one way or another. How far is too far always translates to, how much can I get away with? Now, when my husband and I started dating, we asked, how far is too far? And I thought I had the right intention with the question. Because I was like, God, I really want to know, how far I can go without compromising my purity. So, yeah, it's a good question to ask. No, I was really asking, how much can I get away with? And so Joseph and I, we created a list of rules for ourselves to follow. This was early in our dating relationship. We thought, if we create a list of rules, then we won't ever go too far. And we start writing down these rules. But you know what we ended up doing is, in order to create rules for ourselves, we had to describe the sensual scenarios that we wouldn't put ourselves in. It's like reverse flirting. We're going to talk about all the things we're not going to do. No. Thankfully, we realized what we were doing pretty quickly. We got that little check in your spirit, the conviction. Woo! Oh. So I said, okay, God, forgive us. We shouldn't go down that road. But what are we going to do? We need a list of rules to follow. And he's like, no. If you love me, that's where it starts. If you love the Lord your God with all your heart, there's no room in your heart to love the things of the world. Love me first. Keep it simple. Love me with your whole heart. So, we did. And by God's grace, we made it all the way to our wedding day. That's our wedding. Woohoo! See? Victory! But I'll tell you, 6 weeks before the wedding, he came back from school, and we started spending a lot more time together, just final arrangements before our wedding day. And we realized we do need to create a list of rules for ourselves. And you're going to be like, wait a second, I thought you just said, not to have the list of rules. Rules that are rightly ordered with relationship first. Your relationship with God first. So that's what we did. Instead of asking, how far is too far, we asked, how close to God can we be? And what do we need to do? What rules, or guidelines, if you like that word better, do we have to follow to be close to God? And that's the question that we asked to make it all the way to the altar. Abstinence education. Another way that we've tried to navigate sexuality that hasn't worked. Abstinence education tells us the scary facts. There's 110 million STDs. 50% of those are shared among people ages 15 to 24. Facts, scary, gross, all head knowledge. We learn it in school, but good luck fighting your heart with your head. In the heat of the moment, are you really going to remember a bunch of facts? No, you're not. Let's revisit the story of Joseph. Think about him. He was a lonely man. He was a servant. He had no family. His mother had died. He was a slave. He probably had no prospect for marriage or really any future. Emotionally, he was in great need. So when Potiphar's wife offered her companionship to him, don't you think that would have been emotionally tempting? If you're that lonely, if you've been that abused, if you have no marriage in your future, don't you think that Satan could have preyed upon those emotions? We're lonely. When we scroll on social media and we look at our friends having parties that we're not invited to, maybe when we feel like a third wheel or like no one understands us, or when people ignored us at school and we just go home and shut our door and we cry, we're lonely. And Satan will take those moments of loneliness and that emotional vulnerability, and he'll offer something that seems tempting. And how do we defeat it? Is it with a list of facts? Did Joseph say, oh, no, I can't sleep with Potiphar's wife because she might have an STD? No. He said, how could I sin against God? Guys, In our moments of emotional vulnerability, rules aren't enough and facts aren't enough. Only God is enough. Abstinence education can't give us that. How about the free love movement? Do you guys know what the free love movement is? Okay, think like hippies and like Woodstock, nudist colonies, all that stuff. That's the free love movement in the 1960s. You know what it turned into today? Because it's carried through, it never stopped. Today it just goes by the name of hookup culture. Y'all know what that is. Sleep with whoever, whenever I want. No matter what their sex is, no matter what their name is, if they're a complete stranger or not. No ties, just sleep with whoever. That is the free love movement. But free love is not free. We get trapped in the bondage of our sin. We're looking for freedom in the wrong places. Free love movement is what's given us STDs, high divorce rates, loneliness, gender confusion. LGBT used to be enough to describe the multiplicities of gender confusion that exist today. Now Australia has documented 33 different terms to identify gender identity. Guys, that's not freeing, that's confusing. It's confusing to try to navigate this world and figure out who the heck you are when we have a guidebook to help us navigate that confusion so we can keep it simple. So I'm sure you guys are listening to all this thinking, yeah, Ashley, this is complicated. Simple, hello, that's the point of this conference. Like, did Dylan know that you were talking about this stuff? Well, guess what, guys? This is complicated, but it's simple when we do it God's way. We think that purity equals perfection, but purity actually equals clarity. Okay, this is so cool, guys. Okay, so let's be honest. When you think of something that's pure, you think of something that's perfect, or like never makes a mistake, you always do everything right, just like pure without any blemish, right? I mean, that's kind of what the word purity has always meant in our heads. But when you look up the word in the dictionary, we forget about all the other synonyms. The other synonyms for the word purity are things like authentic, real, simple. Those are actual synonyms for the word purity. Because purity is less about perfection and more about the clarity to be able to see God clearly. Matthew 5:8 says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Guys, this is the promise of a pure lifestyle. Because to the pure, everything is pure. Joseph had a vision from God. And things kept trying to come in the way, and he was throwing them off. This distraction, this worldly temptation, no. Because I have a clear focus, I have clarity. But to the impure heart, nothing is pure. It's murky, it's confusing, it's indecisive. Our judgment is clouded. Maybe you've believed some of the lies of impurity. I only look at porn sometimes. It doesn't affect me. It's my body. I can wear whatever I want. Sex doesn't hurt anyone. I am who I am. The movies I watch, they don't matter. I love him, so it's okay to have sex. We're just texting about it. We're not actually doing anything yet. Do any of those lies sound familiar to you? You may not be watching porn or having casual sex, but maybe you are. And an impure mind, at any scale, clouds our judgment and keeps us from seeing things clearly. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you men of double mind. What does it mean to be double-minded? It means that your loyalties are split between God and the world. It means you're not just focused on one thing. You don't have one love. You're divided. But when we have one love, when we want what God wants, we can see things clearly. we can stay on course. We can stay on vision. Your yes can always be yes, and your no, no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Have you ever met someone who just changes their mind all the time? They're just confused. They follow one course 1 minute, and then someone else has a better offer, so then they switch their mind. They change their mind. Guys, when we're following God, that doesn't happen. Because we know from the onset what our goal is. We have that clear vision, just like Joseph did. Now, I'm not promising that you're going to go home and you're going to have a dream tonight of your future like Joseph. Maybe you will. But what I can promise you is that you will see God when you follow his word. But his word has to be written on your heart. Across My Heart Ministries got its name kind of from this saying, his word is written across my heart. Because it's not enough to just sit there and say, oh yeah, Ashley, this all sounds really good. Like, yeah, cool, I want to be committed to purity. Guys, there's a lot of things that might sound good or we might have the intention to do. We actually got to follow through with them. Okay, I have the intention to clean my room, but I don't do it. More so the intention to fold laundry. That never happens. I might think about it a lot. I might think it sounds like a really good idea. But guys, his word has to be written across our heart because sexual temptation is pervasive. Potiphar's wife offered herself to him day after day, it says. Nagging, constantly there. Guys, sex is all around us. It's in our movies, it's in our music. Like I said, it's in the magazines, in the grocery aisle. You get on your Instagram feed and you maybe search a hashtag, and then suddenly an image of a half-naked woman pops up, and you're like, what? I didn't go on Instagram to see that. And then you're reminded of your propensity to lust. You're like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. Nagging us constantly, just like Potiphar's wife. So what it really comes down to is, why do you want to do the right thing? Because friends, I've had friends that have sat in the chairs just like you, they were raised in the church just like me, and when I looked around them in high school, they were making all the wrong decisions because they were just following the rules. They didn't actually desire God. They didn't actually desire and want him. Guys, what do you want? Maybe you're sitting there today and you're thinking, gosh, I'm not really like Joseph at all. I'm more like Potiphar's wife. I'm the one who values and is so obsessed with attention and relationships that I'm throwing myself all over people. I'm the temptress. I'm the one seducing. And maybe you're thinking, man, my heart's not even in the right place. Well, guess what, guys? It's not too late. It's not too late for you. I don't care. No, this might rub some people the wrong way. I don't care if you're a virgin. I care why you want to be a virgin. I know plenty of good girls who have Kleenex on the outside and are dirty on the inside. Sound like a Pharisee? Jesus wants our hearts. He wants us to do the right things for the right reasons, guys. And we all start off dirty. We all start off in the same place. Isaiah says that we're like filthy rags before the Lord until he takes us and cleans us. You know, a rag is like a piece of cloth. It's just a piece of it. It's not enough to cover our sins. We try to piece these rags over our wrongdoings just to try to cover our shame. And God's like, no, don't do that. No, here, I will give you this white robe to wear. If you want it, if you desire it, it's yours. Here, wear this white robe. But what matters is that you want it, guys. It matters that you desire God. Because if you do not, you will leave this room and you will fail. Because Joseph did the right thing, and the story doesn't end there. He ends up being wrongly accused, thrown in prison for doing the right thing. Potiphar's wife says that he raped her, which he didn't. He falsely accuses him and throws him into prison. Guys, if he did the right thing for the wrong reason, and he got thrown into prison, do you think he'd be very happy about it? No. When we do the right thing for the wrong reason, it's miserable.
Have you ever met those good Christians that are just following the rules and they're miserable? They're like, oh, following God is so hard. No, following God's not hard, guys. It's life-giving. It's awesome when you're doing it for the right reasons. So sometimes it might feel like we're sitting in prison with Joseph. Like, God, I'm just trying to do the right thing. And like, I'm getting mocked. And being a virgin isn't cool. And people are making fun of me for not sleeping with my boyfriend or girlfriend. And it might seem hard. It might seem like we're in prison. But guess what? When Joseph was in prison, it says God was with him. Guys, Joseph had everything that he wanted. His desire was for God, and that's exactly what he got. It says in verse 20, while Joseph was in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. The Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Guys, God is with us. And we can see him. We have the recipe to see God and have a clear vision for our lives. Can you see him? Do you want to see him? Because that's what Joseph wanted. And that's what he got. God with him. Guys, our sexuality is just like anything else in our lives. It's holistic. It's part of our whole person. And just like you're being told in the main conferences or in every other session, it's all about one thing. Living completely sold out for Jesus. Wanting God. Don't be divided. Don't be double-minded. Give your whole self to him. Purity is not about perfection. It's about clarity. Passionately pursue the heart of God with your whole life, your mind, your soul, and yes, your body, and you will see him. Let's close in prayer. Lord God, as we leave this place, we pray that we are not following rules or facts, but that we are following you. And God, that we have a passion and a desire to live for you, because that's the only way that we're going to live pure lives, God. And why do we want to live pure lives? God, it's because we want to see you. God, we want clarity and vision for our future, God. We don't want these distractions to come in the way, these sexual temptations, and get us off course, the spiritual warfare that Satan is using in our lives. God, no, we want to battle the spiritual war with your word daily on our hearts. God, guide us and let us see you. In your name we pray.